family. So great to have you join us today. My name is Scott. Behind the camera is Jenny. We are anticipating an incredible morning. Look at me already studying with my words. We're anticipating an incredible morning together. We have so much going on here at Trinity, and we always love when you come in person, but we know so many of you, 1,200 last week, were joining us online. So there's a large family, and wherever you're watching, we just consider it a privilege that you would consider Trinity part of your weekend experience. And hey, as always, we have online chat hosts that would love to talk to you. If you have questions, your information you're wondering about, or you want to get connected to one of our digital courses. And who's on today? Our friend Caitlin. It's just over here. This is Caitlin. She is the one chatting with you today. How are you doing, Caitlin?
So good.
That's awesome. And people can ask you about like favorite worship songs. They can even post theirs. There's all sorts of things or questions about things that are going on.
Absolutely. I love to make a comment on the things we're sharing or just say hi.
That's awesome. Well, and so honestly, if you have anything going on, questions you have, please reach out to her. If you need prayer, or if you just want to know how you can get connected in any of our age group ministries, please do that and reach out to Caitlin today. We have an incredible service planned for you, wonderful worship set, and Wayne's jumping back into the story. Before he gets up here and before we get started, check out In the Know.
Whether you can spell it or not, happy February and welcome to Trinity. My name is Dave and this is your weekly dose of information goodness. So let's get you in the know. Every week we are seeing more and more people join us right here for the very first time in the refinery, which is awesome. But just a reminder that provincial guidelines require all worshipers to be masked at all times for all faith gatherings, which is us right here in the refinery. And if you're not aware, we're meeting in here because of a sprinkler line burst in our auditorium that happened back in June of last year. Now, there's a full restoration process that's happening, and you can get all the latest updates on our website. And if you're a family with littles, grade 5 and under, Trinity Kids Are Environments for Little Humans is designed just for them, and it rocks. Kids 0 to grade 5 get checked in the South Lobby on Sundays before the service. And if you're a parent right now and you're learning this information for the very first time, go ahead, stand up, head out to the lobby and talk to a host who will walk you over and check you and your kids in. We will wait. Okay, we won't wait, but we'll be right here when you get back. And if you're watching online as a family, check out some of the great online content at Trinity's YouTube channel. Okay, let's talk baptism. If you've been on a spiritual journey where you've made the decision to follow God, you've accepted the forgiveness of Jesus, you believe that the Holy Spirit is working in you, and you haven't been baptized, then we need to have a conversation. Baptism is a beautiful symbol where you declare your faith, and then as a community, we celebrate that decision. Now, heads up, we're planning on having the next baptism service at our Easter service celebrations in April, and it is gonna be awesome. Now, if you have been baptized, you're new to our community, or you've been around for a while and you just have never planted your stake in the ground and become a member, then we need to talk. Membership at Trinity says that you are all in. You want to give back, to serve, to help make some of the choices to move our church forward. And over the past few years, our church has been changing. Our ethnic, generational, and economic diversity has created this beautiful mosaic where everyone is welcome, no one is perfect, and anything is possible. This is what the church has always been designed to be. And as Wayne retires as our senior pastor in June, this next season is critical as members will speak into the direction that we believe God is moving. And your voice matters. To find out more information about baptism or membership or how to sign up for both, head to our membership page on the website. And if you're in person today, head to the link in the lobby after the service and have a conversation. If you're live streaming, have a chat with some of our online hosts. A way to go for making time to invest in your spiritual journey today. Here, everyone is welcome. No one is perfect, and anything is possible.
Well, hey everyone. If we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Wayne, and welcome to those online or in higher grounds, as well as here in the room. Great to see you this morning. Hey, I'm wondering if you remember the movie from a few years ago that was called Perfect Storm. The Perfect Storm. It was all about three massive weather fronts that all came together and they collided in the North Atlantic. And it was perfect in the sense that it was forecasted, and then it happened, and that thankfully it ended. But it was a massive storm. Well, I kind of feel like we are in an imperfect storm right now. Meaning this one came out of nowhere. It's kind of lingering. We're not sure, even though it's lifting a bit, it's still here. We don't know how it's going to end. So it's kind of imperfect. And here's a few of the weather fronts, if you will, that are hitting our church right now. So, of course, there's COVID. I mean, that sent us all into our homes and restricted all in-person gatherings. We had to go fully digital. Now we're starting to come back in person, but it's slow and we're still somewhat restricted. So there's COVID. Then there's this heat wave and a burst sprinkler head in our auditorium, and all of a sudden, a capital renewal program that is expanded, accelerated, and outrageously expensive. So that's a second one. Well, then there's third, where our operating budget, it's sliding, and we're still trying to find where the bottom is. And then you add on top of all that a senior pastor transition, which is a big moment, big decision for our church. Now, any one of those weather elements would be big. You pile them all up, it is massive. It's overwhelming. And plus, on top of that, I got a few on my own that are swirling around, and I'm sure you do as well. So here's what helps me. I've found throughout my life that when I'm in stormy, uncertain seasons, like the kind of one we're in right now, I lean into the Psalms. I love the Psalms. They're the ancient prayer and songbook of God's people, relevant thousands of years ago and still relevant today. So I decided, because I was going to face quite a few challenges in 2022, I would just soak my way slowly through the entire book of Psalms. So earlier this week, I'm in Psalm 23. Most of you know that psalm by heart, or pieces of it. But I was captivated by one particular verse, and it was verse 3. And it said this: He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Church, I've been holding on to that all week. I need him to renew my strength. I need him to help guide me along right paths. And I want to make sure that everything I do in a way that brings honor and glory to him alone. I'm wondering if that could be our posture even this morning. Would you stand with me right across the church? As we now move into this whole time together, where we worship, where we pray, where we open God's word, what would our posture be? That we would be desiring that we would be renewed with hope and joy and faith, strength. That we would want to be guided on right paths, good, honorable paths. That's what we want. And that everything we do here, every single thing, brings honor and glory and praise to him and him alone. Because it is all about him. So would you pray with me before we sing? Father, thank you for your word that speaks. Thank you for this verse that grabbed me this week and won't let me go. And I do ask right now that your Holy Spirit would visit us in a new and beautiful and precious and powerful way and move us, restoring, renewing, revitalizing, resetting, if you will, and guiding us into right paths, moving us along into the holy ways of wisdom, the rhythms of grace, and that you would receive this praise. It's honor to you. Lord, we love you, and we pray this in your name. And everyone said, amen.
You are with me. What can separate us? You are. sing this together. 'Cause I know your thoughts, your plans for me are good. And I know you hold my future and my hope. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. Your promises never fail. Sing it out. Let praise be a weapon. Let praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. Let it rise. Let praise arise. We sing your name in the dark and it changes everything. We sing with all we are and we claim your victory. Let it rise. Oh, let praise arise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, let faith be the song that overcomes the raging sea. Let faith be the song that calms the storm inside of me. Come on. Let it rise. Oh, let faith arise. Let it rise. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. 'Cause the God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lifted high. With all creation cry, God, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, often when I think of the word or the act of praise, I default to thinking that it's always joyful, it's always celebratory, that it comes from the place of everything being good. And as Wayne just shared at the top of the service, our church is going through some stuff. Now, it doesn't mean that praise can't be those things, but praise does not mean a lack of uncertainty, a lack of fear, a lack of pain, a lack of struggles. But when we choose to put ourselves in that posture of praise, just like what we're about to sing, that is where we truly begin to live. Yeah, come on. That is where we begin to experience his freedom. And that is where we catch a glimpse of heaven right here together. So as we continue singing out these words together, let's be reminded, let's remind each other that our God doesn't change, that he meets us right where we are, regardless of where we find ourselves. On top of the things mentioned here, each one of us has walked in these doors with our own stuff. But he chooses to meet us and love on us right here. So as we continue to lift his name, lift up his praise, right here, right now, we get to catch a glimpse of heaven together. So come on, church, let's sing this out. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels looks like. This is what freedom feels like. And this is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. Come on, let's sing it out, church. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We praise. Come on, let's lift him up. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. When all creation cries out. Come, we'll see you break. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side. Forever lift him high. With all creation cries out, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you. Oh, we praise you, Lord. You are worthy of all the praise, Jesus. Oh, we lift you up. We lift you up, Jesus. 'Cause this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. And this is what heaven sounds like. Jesus, we praise you. 'Cause this is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. And this is what heaven sounds like. Oh, we praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. And this is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. Come on, this is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We praise you. Come on, this is what living
sing his praise aloud. Sing his praise aloud. Hallelujah. Sing his praises. There is a sound that changes things. The sound of his people on their knees. Oh, wake up, you slumbering. It's time to worship him. Wake up, my soul, and sing his praise aloud. Oh, sing his praise aloud. Oh, wake up, my soul, and sing his praise aloud. Oh, sing his praise aloud. And when he moves, and when we pray, we're stood a wall, now it stands away, where every promise is amen. And when he moves, make no mistake, if the bells of hell begin to shake, all hail the Lord, all hail the King. Hey, oh, let the King of Glory enter in. Hey, fall down on your knees and worship. Hey, let his praise rise up, don't hold it in. Don't hold it in. My soul, and sing his praise aloud. Sing his praise aloud. Oh, wake up, my soul, and sing his praise aloud. Sing his praise aloud. And when he moves, and when we pray, we're stood a wall, now it stands away, where every promise is amen. And when he moves, make no mistake, the boughs of hell begin to shake. All hail the Lord, all hail the King.
Let's keep singing that out, church. And when he moves,
And when he moves, and when we pray, we're stood a wall, now it stands away, where every promise is amen. And when he moves, make no mistake, the boughs of hell begin to shake. All hail the Lord, all hail the King.
sing that one more time together. And when he
God's presence is here, isn't it? Like he chooses by his Spirit to show up. No matter what we were thinking this week, no matter what we did, no matter if we talked to him or not, or we worshiped him in the morning or in the evening, if we were angry or upset, or we struggled trusting him, he still showed up. He still said, I want to be with my people. I want to be in their presence so they can enjoy my presence. And he doesn't care if this is you and you're just trying to figure out who he is. He goes, come. Or you've been church for your whole life and you got, God's not nothing to teach me. He goes, no, come, I've got so much to teach you. See, his pleasure and his joy isn't to push you farther away or isn't to make anxiety get in the way of him. He goes, no, come on, I want you to come deeper, closer to my heart. I want you to experience me more than you could ever possibly imagine. That's the God that's with us today. That's joining you as you sit watching in your room, at home. And right here at Springfield and Spall, he is here. And that's the power of the Holy Spirit that invades the space we're in and says, I love you. I'm for you. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I won't be afraid. For God, you're close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect me, comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me, God, by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and your unfailing love will pursue me, will run after me, will chase me. Surely, God, your goodness and your unfailing love will be with me from my first breath in the morning until my eyes close at night. All the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. Would you pray with me? Scott, God, we just sang the song that your promises never fail, that they're always true, that they always hold fast. God, that when there's a wall, you make a way. When we sing praises to you, it actually replaces our anxiety. When we welcome you into our lives, fear just goes away. God, if we came here today and we needed to be reminded of your presence, you've answered that prayer. Would you awaken our hearts to it, our souls, our lives? But most of all, Father, would you pour down your love? Would you pour it over every single person that is listening today? That they would experience you more than they could ever comprehend, and they would know that you alone are the one that deserves all the credit. You alone are the one that deserves our lives and our passions. And you alone are the one we get to call God. We pray this in the very precious name of Jesus. And everybody said, amen. Hey, can we just give God thanks for showing up here today? Because that's pretty... You can take a seat. So grateful for the band. You guys did an incredible job today. Thank you so much for leading us that way. Man, we're so grateful that you choose to make Trinity part of your experience. And we're filling up in here, and I know we're filling up online. Matter of fact, last week we had about 500 people here, and we had about 1,200 people joining us online. And we're so incredible for those of you. Yeah, we can clap out. That's for you guys out there. And if you didn't know, here, they're live with us right now. So we're so grateful that you are joining us across, I know the Okanagan, about 80% of you in the Okanagan, another 20% are all around the world. And so wherever you're at today, we're so grateful that you chose to make Trinity part of your weekend experience. And some people make Trinity part of the weekend experience by giving generously. And there's a couple ways to do that. For people that are in the house here, there's a QR code on the back of the chair there. You can just scan that with the camera on your phone. That'll take you all the links, including what Dave talked about in the know, different courses and opportunities if you want to get baptized or membership. Caitlin will throw it in the chat there for you as well if you want to kind of figure out how to get connected in this faith community. And for you, those of you stepping into generosity, we are incredibly grateful for that. Actually, Wayne's going to talk about that in a deeper way as we jump into the story in just a few minutes. But next weekend, I want you to make plans to not skedaddle as soon as you leave, actually, after a gathering together. It's just been resonating on our team's heart that we need to gather together as a church and pray. There's so many things, as Wayne mentioned, that have just kind of come together in this imperfect storm and just really feel like we want God to show up in a powerful way. And so immediately following the service next week on Sunday, we'll have about a 15-minute bio break and get the kids or whatever. We're going to go over to the auditorium, and we're going to have a prayer time over in the auditorium for about half an hour, and we're going to invite you to participate with us. So make plans to say it's Super Bowl Sunday. The Super Bowl doesn't start to the afternoon, so you got lots of time to involve God and invite him into this season, because who knows what he wants to tell us today, but also what we're believing for the future of what he has in our auditorium in our church. So please make plans to join us online. We're going to put together a little resource for you so you can pray right at home as we're praying, and you can listen to some music and do exactly what we're going to do here. So we're so excited. Please make plans. We kind of nicknamed it House of Prayer. How are you doing? We can, if you need a name for something like that. But you're more than welcome, whether you give it a nickname or not, to come join. And we just can't wait to pray together as a church. Well, as I mentioned, Wayne is jumping into the story, and hopefully you've got your copy of the story. If not, they're at the back. You can go to the link afterwards, grab a copy. It's pure scripture. That's all it is, and we're just kind of unpacking the story of God's incredible plan of redemption and the gospel message. And this week, Wayne's going to be jumping into David. Now, maybe you don't know this about Wayne, but Wayne, every Saturday and Sunday, he starts circling the campus nice and early, and he just prays. He puts his headphones on, and he is belting out music. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's horrible. I'm just saying he belts out music, and he does that. But that's the type of guy that he is. Can you welcome Wayne as he gets up here?
Belting out the music. Yes, yes, yes. Hey, everyone. It is so great to see you again. And man, that worship was so good. My heart needed that. Could have stayed in that a long time. Yes. So good. Hey, before we jump into chapter 12 of the story, and we'll get there in just a moment, I want to cycle back to a comment I made up top about this imperfect storm, and in particular, our operating budget. And so I also want to treat you to some fine art on a flip chart. Haven't done that in quite a while, so here we go. But here's what I want to just unpack. On Wednesday afternoon, our staff met right in here, right in the space right here. I used this very same flip chart and same markers. And I won't unpack everything we had to cover, but it was a hard meeting, because I needed to give them a heads up on a grim reality that we are facing. And you know, even though it was a little risky because we did not have the plan fully laid out yet, they deserved to know what was coming. Our culture, our values, the way we love one another, to treat them with respect and dignity, we had to talk about it. And so I unpacked some things that they needed to know, and you know what? So do you. You call this your home church. Those of you joining us online by the hundreds, we believe you are starting to dial in more and more, or the higher grounds. So we want to make sure you're on the same page as well. So here's the deal. And this is something that's so exciting, really, in a sense, that for many, many years, our church has celebrated terrific generosity. We just have, long before I arrived. But if you want to talk about more recently, between, let's say, 2011, and let's go up to, say, 2019. In that season right here, our revenue, or our giving on our annual budget, it continued to rise quite nicely, about 4% per year. Was doing so good. And we were so thankful for that. And so nested underneath this operating budget, we had, of course, our staffing structure, and we had all of our missions giving, and all of our different ministries and so on, and those were all rocking as well. Matter of fact, 2019 was our best year ever as a church. And we were so thrilled with it. Just outstanding. And then in March of 20, along comes COVID. And we're no longer allowed to meet. And our giving begins to slide. And then, when we're just kind of reeling with that, a burst sprinkler head in the auditorium, and now a capital renewal project comes. And again, some money begins to get directed and diverted to that. And our operating budget again takes a hit. Now, hear me. I am so thankful for all of you that have already participated in giving to the renewal of our auditorium. Over $1 million already in donations and seat sale. Way to go. More to come on that, but it's so good. Thankful for it. But what's happened now is with those two hits, as we went through 20 and 21 and now early into 22, with those two hits, we are way off what we need in our operating budget. Our budget for this year right now, we need $57,400 per week. That's the budget. And right now, we are averaging $43,000.7. Now, you don't have to be a mathematic major to know this math doesn't work. When you're on the wrong side of this, 13, 14,000 every single week, doesn't work. And that's our reality. And so now we're in this place that, frankly, our church has never been in before. Now we're in a place where our staffing structure, because we don't know where this is going, our operating budget, still don't know. All I know is it's light. But now we're trying to bring our staffing underneath it, our missions underneath it, our ministries underneath it. Now we got to right-size this. And that's what we're doing. So there's imminent change coming. And it will affect all of us. And so I would ask for your prayers. Because we're navigating new territory. Our church hasn't had to do this. Certainly not on my watch in 15 years. We haven't had to do this. But we do now. And so we're working through. And so I want to say to you right up front, if you're one of those who believes the myth that this is a rich church and a few rich families will bail us out, that is not true. Every single dollar matters. Every one. And everybody participating matters. And so we're going to do the hard work here over the next couple of weeks to bring this aligned. And I'm calling you to help us move to a place. And I'm believing, I'm praying and hoping for a extravagant generosity, for a willingness and a devotion to give like we've never given before, that our church would flourish into the future. That's what I am praying for and hoping for. And I call you that with me. Now, this whole idea, though, of having actually an extravagant generosity, of a willingness and a devotion that it would just go right through the top, that is actually what we will find in front of us in our checks this week. And I'm not joking. I'm not twisting this. I'm not trying to make it fit. Hear me on this. When we teach, we go exactly where the Bible text takes us. And the text this week, from the back half of chapter 12, it's going to take us to consider this truth. And here it is, in one line. Generosity has little to do with your money. It has much to do with your heart. Let me say it again. Generosity, it actually doesn't have much to do with your money. It's got a whole lot to do with your heart. Now, we're going to get there. We will get there. But before we get to this idea of generosity, we got to cycle back. Because maybe some of you weren't here last week and you missed the first half of chapter 12. So let's just kind of do a little recap and then we'll move into it. Last week, we're looking at David's life, a sad section in his life. He falls to a temptation of severe lust, and he commits adultery with Bathsheba. And not only that, he then conspires to have her husband, Uriah, murdered. Well, eventually, God sends a prophet, Nathan, who confronts David. And David, I'm so thankful, He doesn't avoid his sin or ignore his sin. He actually owns it, acknowledges it. He confesses, he repents, and he is forgiven. So good. But, big but, there are often consequences for our sin. Private sins have some public consequences, lingering effects. And it's true with David. And Nathan, he unpacks this for him. He lets him know that even though you are forgiven, here's something that's going to play out in your life. And here's the text. Now, this is Nathan speaking to David. Therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me, God, and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity on you. Whew. Out of your own household. In other words, from within your family, from within your known relational circle, from within those who love you and care for you, you thought, from within that circle will come tragedy and calamity. And that's exactly what happened. David's son, Absalom, he was dark and handsome and chiseled, and he was cunning, and he was daring and courageous, and he was shrewd. He begins to undermine his father's administration. He begins actually to seek the favor and popularity of the people for his own political agenda. He does everything he can do to win the crowds over so that he can oust his dad and take over the throne. That's Absalom, David's son. And David is heartbroken with this. Like now he's facing an enemy he's never faced. He was used to facing enemies out there. Now he's facing one within the camp, within his family. His own son turning against him. And David's heartbroken. But he's got to act, because this rebellion that Absalom is leading, it's getting larger. So the king has to move. He has to act. But then he says to his commanders and troops as they go out to squash the rebellion, he says to them, and they all hear him, he says, hey, when you go out, be careful with my son Absalom. Don't hurt him. Don't harm him. Protect him. Well, the troops go out, but a few commanders, they're not nearly as kind or gracious as David is. What happens is, Absalom, he one day is riding his donkey. He's got long flowing hair. His hair gets caught in a tree, if you can believe it. And now he's swinging helplessly in the tree. And three commanders forget what David said about don't hurt my son. They pick up 3 javelins and they thrust them right into his heart. And he collapses off the tree. And then the rest of the guard, they all pounce on him and they kill him. And now word gets back to David that Absalom is dead. Here's the text. Then the Cushite arrived and said, my lord the king, hear the good news. The Lord has vindicated you today by delivering you from the hand of all those who rose up against you. The king asked the Cushite, is the young man Absalom safe? The Cushite replied, may the enemies of my lord and the king and all who rise up against you be like that man, meaning dead, very dead. King was shaken. He went up to the room over the gateway and wept. As he went, he said, oh, my son, Absalom, my son, Absalom, if only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son. There is a parent or grandparent in this room, higher grounds, or online listening to this. Can you imagine the pain of that? Of now you've had one of your own family, your son, die, and that death just causes such heartache. What could have been, might have been, but now will never be. This is when David actually penned a lot of his laments, his poems and his prayers and his songs of great grief and pain. It was out of this, of what happened here. And it's just a reminder, isn't it? That when you have broken relationships within the family, they hurt most of all. Most of all. You've maybe heard the term in military language, friendly fire. It means when one of your own is shot by one of your own troops, but it's an accident. Sadly, my experience in the church of 25 years of ministry, my deepest wounds have come from within the camp. The friendly fire in the church is not so friendly. And I say to all of us, hey, we can choose a higher, better path of redemption and healthy relationship with one another. That we wouldn't live in that deep, deep pain of broken relationships within the family. Now, here's the good news, though. David's story isn't finished. His story doesn't end there. Matter of fact, his story continues, and I was listening to a great song earlier this week. Yes, I might have been belting it out, Scott, when I was doing my prayer walk. But this song had one great line in it. It was about the breakthrough mighty power of God. And one line said, if God's still in it, the story's not over. If God's still in it, the story's not over. And God was still in David's story. And his story wasn't over. Hey, time out. Wherever you might be in your own journey, however hard it might be right now, God's still in your story. He's still writing your story. There is still great hope. And so David, his story is still being written. He now gets prompted that, you know what? He wants to buy a piece of property, which he does, and now he wants to build a house for God, a tabernacle, a temple. That's what he wants to build. And he wants it to be spectacular, and he's got huge vision for it. And then he gets informed that, you know what? David, because you've been a king that's had all these battles and wars, you are not going to be the one who will build the actual temple. That will fall to your son, Solomon. And Solomon's name means the one who the Lord loved. It'll fall on Solomon, your son, but not you. And here's where David, and I don't like using the pivot word because it's used too much, but here's where David does an amazing pivot. You can feel it. David doesn't whine and complain that he's not going to be able to finish the temple. He doesn't. He pivots and goes, okay, I can't do that, but what can I do? And he realizes there's a lot he can do. He can cast vision for the temple. He can rally the people around it to move as one. He can raise massive resources to build the temple. And that's exactly what he does. Now, time out. This has a lot of personal application for me. Every single week, at least once, usually several times, I put on a hard hat and I walk into that auditorium. And I make my way through, praying through that room, and I usually end up on the partially constructed stage, trying to make sure I don't fall through and hurt myself. But as I pray and I stand there, I realize I'm not going to see that room finished during my tenure at this church. It's probably going to be July, even August, before we're in there. I think the church will head to a fantastic launch in September of next year. And my heart's broken with that in one sense. I can't wait to see that room full of people worshiping God with exuberant, loud, wonderful praise. I can't wait or imagine the idea of people learning about Jesus and coming to faith, of getting baptized, of understanding their gifts, of beginning to grow. All of that is going to happen there, and you know what? I'm not going to be part of that. But rather than whine, what can I do? Oh, man. I can certainly keep casting vision for it. I can keep trying to rally the people, our people around it. I can do everything I can to raise up the resources that this church will thrive into the future. So that's where I go with that. And David, he's a master at this. Look at the vision that he casts now as he now begins to talk to the people about this. Now, devote your heart and soul to seeking the Lord, your God. Begin to build the sanctuary of the Lord God, so that you may bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord and the sacred articles belonging to God into the temple. That will be built for the name of the Lord. David says, okay, let's go. Seek God. Love Him. Begin this great work. Begin to build it. Begin to get all the resources together. Move on it. This is a house for the Lord, and it'll be like no other. Matter of fact, there's one little phrase in one of the texts that I just love. It's another phrase that references. This is David. He goes, the task is great because this palatial structure is not for man, but for the Lord God. Hey, do you know what palatial means in the original language? Palatial. It means jaw-dropping, eye-popping, extraordinary, extravagant, spectacular, beyond measure. It means so great you can't even imagine. David describes it as magnificent, full of splendor and honor, that would send out a statement that all that see it, that goes, wow, this is their God. Amazing how he describes it. That's what he's calling the people to. What you will not find in any of David's vision around the temple is a, that's good enough for the church attitude. You never find that. You'll find that picture so massive and beautiful. Sadly, many Christians today will treat their homes with higher regard than the places and spaces that are dedicated to God. We're quick to renew and restore and renovate our kitchens and our bathrooms, but the house of God, that's good enough. That's not what happens here. And so David, he's a master. He now, after casting this vision for what it will be, he then leads to one question. And it's a question that every single one of us must answer. And here's the question. He leads to it. Now, who is willing to consecrate themselves to the Lord today? He's talking about generosity, but don't miss this. This idea of consecrate, it's a very technical term. He's actually referring to the ordination process by which the sanctification of the priests. It's a very high and holy order. And that idea of consecrate, it's that you bring every single thing in your hand and you offer it fully, full devotion to God. And David, amazingly, he is putting that whole sacred moment of a priest, and he's putting generosity and devotion and a willingness to give on the same level. He's saying, consecrate yourselves, devote yourselves, give yourselves as fully to this cause as a priest would to the priesthood. Incredible. And I imagine when he probably said that, the people would have been shocked. They were like, what? Did he just put those on the same place? Yes, he did. And then they got it. Man, they grabbed that one and they ran with it. Look at the response here. I'm halfway through page 171. I got to read you this. This is so good. David says, now who is willing to consecrate themselves to the Lord today? Here's the response. Then the leaders of families, the officers of the tribes of Israel, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, and the officials in charge of the king's work gave willingly. They gave toward the work on the temple of God 5,000 talents and 10,000 talents in derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. Anyone who had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the temple. That's a lot of stuff piling up. And I love the last sentence here as it says this. And the people rejoiced at the willing response of their leaders, for they had given freely and wholeheartedly to the Lord. And David the king, he rejoiced greatly. Hey, I ask you, can you hear it? Generosity is like a mighty rushing river. It starts like a spring snowmelt, and it starts with the king and goes to the leaders. And then it goes to the heads of families, and then to the families, and then to the people. And it becomes a flood of generosity. And that's what happens. And it was so powerful. And David, he rejoices. And then I love the fact that David then, he writes one of his psalms, giving all the glory to God. Hear me. He does not take the glory for himself that he raised it. He doesn't let the people take the glory that you gave it. He doesn't take the glory that is just piling up here. I mean, there was a lot of materials. No. David gives all the glory to God. Listen to what he writes. Praise be to you, Lord, the God of our father Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. Now, our God, we give you thanks and praise your glorious name. Can you imagine being there in that moment? All the raw materials all piled up. Everybody's given willingly and joyfully. And David says, let's just direct this where it needs to go, and it's going up. Beautiful. And David, like any great leader, is observing and learning as he moves along. And look how David summarizes what happens here, what he learned here. It's powerful. I know, here's what he learned. I know, my God, that you test the heart and are pleased with integrity. And now I have seen with joy how willingly your people who are here have given to you. He says, I know you test the heart. Test the heart. This is why I made the bold statement earlier up front about generosity when I said this, that generosity has little to do with your money. It's got everything to do with your heart. It's Jesus. When one day he's standing at the synagogue and he decides to move over and stand right beside where people are putting in their offering. Now, there's a whole message if you want to go to this. And he's watching people put in their offering. And the rich, they're throwing in a little bit out of their wealth. It's pocket change to them. Doesn't hurt them in the least. They hardly even notice. And then a poor widow comes along, and she gives 2 of the smallest coins out of her poverty. And Jesus notices. Her heart? It's right. Her heart is right. Putting this another way, generosity reveals your heart condition. It's a very big indicator about where your heart is. There's another story in the New Testament. Here's in this church, and this couple, they decide to sell a piece of property, and they're going to give the proceeds to God. And they come into the sanctuary, and they want to let everybody believe they are giving 100% of the proceeds. Only problem is they weren't. They were actually trying to deceive. And what happens? They are struck dead on the spot. We haven't had that happen yet at Trinity Church. But the principle that you're giving, your generosity reflects your heart condition? Absolutely. Ultimately, here's where it goes. Generosity, it's a posture of trust and worship. It's where you believe God will meet your need. It's the widow with her little one whose cupboards are bare, but she's got just enough to make one more meal, and then she and her child will die. And then a prophet has the nerve to say, no, make me some meal. Make me a meal first, and you'll be fine. And she trusts and she does it. It's the little tiny lunch that was offered that was 2 fish and a few loaves. And yet it was surrendered, it was given, and it was then blessed and fed thousands. Generosity, it's a posture of trust and of worship. Okay, let me just name something here. After the staff meeting I had here earlier this week, and then on Friday morning sitting in another weekly project team meeting for the capital renewal and seeing the complexities and challenges and expenses of that new space, there's a part of me wishes David was standing right here beside me. He would do such a better job of casting vision, of rallying everybody, of raising the resources. I would love David to be right here, right now with me. I can't. That's impossible. David can't be here. But I tell you what is possible. It's the same God. It's the same God that moved powerfully then that can move powerfully now. It's the same God who answered prayer then can answer prayer now. It's the same God who brought healing and hope then can bring healing and hope now. It's the same God. It's the same God at work right now in this place or where you are watching from. Same God. That I can place my faith in. That I can trust in. That I can believe in. And that's why I think our days are great ahead of us. And I believe God's going to do something amazing. A move of generosity our church has never, ever seen. That's what I'm hoping and praying for. Now, you know what? Whenever you teach about generosity or giving or tithing or whatever, or money, it's a hot topic. And I've learned from 25 years of experience in ministry, whenever you actually teach on it, giving and offering usually drops the next few weeks. Don't let that happen, but it usually falls off because it is complicated. And the enemy likes to get in there and twist it all upside down. Here's some dangers about giving. Just going to be straight up. Here's some dangers of giving that I've seen in my own life and I've seen in every single church I've been part of, including this church. Here's some dangers in giving. First one, when people give out of obligation, when there's a rigid, legalistic, duty, grudging, just toss it in from a hard heart. That's dangerous, that kind of giving. Frankly, I think you're better not to give if that's where you're coming from. Here's another one. When it's to be noticed. Some people like to keep account of how much they've given and how important it is to the church. And they want to be noticed for it. Whew, that's dangerous. Here's another one, a little closer to home. As leverage. Some will say, you know what? When the church does what I want and is the way I want, I will give. And if the church doesn't do what I want and doesn't meet my need, then I won't give. You will not find biblical support for that posture. Let me just straight up. Here's why I can say that with confidence. In the New Testament, there is not one example of a perfect church, including the very first church that was born on Pentecost. It was in trouble 6 months later with division. And you can see the correction given to every single church in the New Testament, right to the book of Revelation, where all 7 churches are instructed and admonished and given direction. So I got to believe throughout the New Testament, there were followers of Jesus who were in faith communities who didn't like certain things and had all kinds of reasons to say, I'm not going to give. And you will never find evidence of that. What you'll find is the opposite. They are challenged to give to the church faithfully, consistently, generously, always. So when you use it as leverage, whew, dangerous ground. Finally, to negotiate with God. Some people think, if I give this, then I want this in return. Okay, God, I'll trust you, but I need this. Now you've moved into a not his will be done, but my will be done. My will, my way. And when you move to that, ooh. Now, there's just 4, and there's more. But please hear me, church. We don't stay on this dark side and the dangers of giving. Please, come with me to the upside. Here's the upside. The upside of giving, when we start to give, your trust in God grows. You begin to remember that he is the way maker. He is the promise keeper. He's the one who did it before. He'll do it again. You believe, and your trust and your faith grow as you give. Here's another. Your heart has changed. Now your heart, instead of being hard, it's softened and it's enlarged and it's inspired by the Spirit. And now your heart is moving and you get to a posture where you can't wait to give more. Your heart is alive in giving. Here's another. Your worship deepens. Hear me, I need to make sure this is clear. I'm amazed at how many followers of Jesus believe worship is singing songs. Yes, it is, but that is but one piece of worship. Musical worship is critical, But worship is actually your entire life. How you get up, how you live, how you work, how you relate, how you manage your money, what you do with your, everything is worship and an offering of praise and sacrifice. And when you start to give, it just multiplies every dimension of your life, and your worship, it deepens and broadens. Another, the kingdom advances. The church stewards the message of the gospel, and the church prevails. And we get to be part of it, not out of obligation or duty, but out of joy and calling. And we're able to participate in it fully. Magnificent that we get to. Those are just a few. There's more, but that's the upside. So I close by coming back to the question that David asked. I'll just edit it slightly. Here's the question. Who is willing to consecrate themselves with a heart devoted to generosity? Who's willing? Now, when I say generosity, this particular text and teach absolutely is about finances and resources and your wealth, for sure. But generosity, of course, includes your time, your abilities, how you love your neighbors, and so on. Absolutely. There's a broader sense. But this really, in this text, is about how you're managing your money. And the text lays it out very clearly. So I just ask, will you this week prayerfully think through and answer that question and see where you are and be open to how God might move you into the future? Let's all stand together as we close. So I want to close by the same verse that I opened with from Psalm 23:3, but this time I want to say it to you as a benediction. So here it is. May God renew your strength. May He renew your hope, renew your faith, renew your joy, renew your passion, renew you to love Christ, renew you to follow Him. And secondly, may God guide you on right paths. There'll be so many paths this week that you can choose. May you walk on righteous, right, holy, and good paths. And finally, may your worship and all that you do, your entire life, may it be done in a way that brings honor and glory and praise to His name and His name alone. Amen, church? Amen. Amen. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
See, I told you it was going to. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed this incredible worship we had and Wayne's message. As always, as I mentioned before, Caitlin and our chat hosts love to get you connected anything you need to, especially if you want to participate in generosity and explore that further. Head to our website, trinitychurchkelowna.ca. Follow the QR code in the chat. That way you can be able to get connected to all the things and find and discover what God might have in store for you in the season to come. We love you. We're for you. Hey, invite a friend and come back next week and see us here again. Have